Hey everyone, so I'm going to be talking about sustainability and Senate Bill H.R. 598, which is the Earth Act to stop climate pollution by 2030. First, I'm going to be talking about the preview. So I'm going to start with an introduction to planetary sustainability, and I'm going to touch on global warming, climate change, and then the key related concepts that go along with it. Then I'm going to go into an overview of H.R. 598. And then do a detailed look at the Earth Act and its goal in reducing climate pollution by 2030. Then I'm going to move to individual and family actions and talking about how there are effective actions that individuals and families can take to support the goals of the Earth Act. And then reflections on sustainability. I'm going to end with lessons learned from analyzing the policy and its implications on families, communities, and the planet. First, sustainability and climate change. So, understanding climate change. So, first we have global warming, which is the gradual increase in Earth's average temperature driven by human activities such as burning fossil fuels. Then climate change, which goes along with global warming, is the long-term shifts in temperature, precipitation, and extreme weather patterns that are due to global warming. So climate change is a result of global warming. And then you have mitigation and adaptation. So mitigation refers to the efforts to reduce or prevent climate change, while adaptation focuses on adjusting and protecting communities from climate-related impacts. And then you have sustainability. So sustainability is the commitment to meeting today's needs without compromising future generations' ability to meet their own. So some key issues that are very prevalent in our world right now. So rising sea levels, extreme weather events, loss of biodiversity, environmental injustices disproportionately affecting marginalized communities. And the need for urgent action to cut greenhouse gas emissions and prevent further climate harm. Okay, then we have climate change and the human impact. So human activities such as deforestation, industrialization, and agriculture have led to increased greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to global warming. Then on the health aspect, climate change increases the frequency of extreme weather events like heat waves and hurricanes, which lead to health crises such as heat stroke, respiratory problems, and the spread of diseases like malaria and the Zika virus. And we have the social and economic impact. Vulnerable communities, especially low income and minority populations, are disproportionately affected. Extreme weather events lead to displacement, job loss, and poverty. And then lastly, data. The World Health Organization, also known as WHO, reports that climate change causes approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year due to malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress. So some disruptive actions versus promoting actions. So disruptive actions, burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial waste. And then some promoting actions that can go against these: renewable energy. So instead of burning fossil fuels, you can replace that with an alternative of renewable energy. And then reforestation, and then to go back on the deforestation, you can start planting more trees and making sure that people aren't cutting down more trees than they need to. And then sustainable agriculture as well goes against industrial waste. Okay, so case study. So I did a case study on climate change in the Arctic. So the Arctic region is experiencing one of the most rapid rates of global warming, as we know, and has been for years. And some of these key factors that are showing this are melting ice. The Arctic sea ice has been declining at the rate approximately 13% per decade since 1980. So this has been a problem for a while. The National Snow and Ice Data Center said that this accelerates the sea level rise and affects global weather patterns. And wildlife impact. Polar bears and other species are losing their habitats while species migration patterns are shifting. And then the human impact. Indigenous Arctic communities face challenges due to warming temperatures affecting hunting and infrastructure. And then we have climate change indicators. So one I found was the average temperature increase. So the Arctic has been warmed at about twice the global average rate over the past 50 years. Next, I found this map, and it shows that 2022 was the Arctic's sixth warmest year on record, and you can see that all the red around that's the Arctic, and it's not supposed to be red. Like, it is supposed to be blue, like this color down here, and it is showing that it is shifted to like a dark red. And then the Arctic warming outpacing the global average, so it's only going up. Okay, next, moving on to individual and family actions. So, effective actions individuals and families can take. One, reduce carbon footprint, maybe switching from regular gas cars to electric vehicles may help, as well as support renewable energy, switch to more LED lights, and make sure we are recycling more. And then embrace sustainable food choices, so maybe more foods that can be composted or recycled instead of just being wasted and going to the landfill. And then advocacy, spreading the word, getting out the word out there, because some people don't believe in global warming for some reason, and they still don't believe in it even after there's been multiple signs of it. So kind of just spreading the word and then telling your family members maybe how they can help contribute to stop the spread of global warming. Next, so I'm going to talk about climate justice and interconnectedness of human and natural worlds. So, environmental/climate justice ensures that vulnerable communities, which are often low income, minorities, or indigenous communities, are not disproportionately affected by the climate change and that they are included in the decision making process for climate solutions. Climate justice focuses on creating equity and addressing both the causes and effects of the climate change. Then, interconnectedness. So, human actions such as deforestation, fossil fuel consumption, and overconsumption are deeply connected to the degradation of the natural environment, which then affects the health, economic security, and social stability of these communities. For instance, climate change induced extreme weather events like floods and droughts impact communities worldwide, often hitting the most marginalized and of the hardest. Some vital actions for individuals and families. So, reduce carbon footprint, such as transportation, which I talked about before. Switching from gas vehicles to electric vehicles can help a lot, or even just riding your bike more places than taking your car. And then energy consumption, use energy efficient appliances and home insulation to lower energy consumption. And then some dietary choices, you can transition towards a plant-based diet it can drastically reduce carbon footprints. The production of plant-based foods typically emits lower greenhouse gases than animal agriculture does. Okay, so some resilience building for families and communities. So climate resilience is the ability of families and individuals and communities to anticipate, prepare for, and respond to climate-related stresses. Then also just being prepared. Every family, individual, community should be prepared for these type of stresses if you make yourself aware of it. And then community engagement, like I talked about before in previous slides, making sure your family members are aware, meeting up with community members and seeing how you guys can come up with ideas to be prepared and make sure those in the community that maybe don't know what to do in a state of emergency are now prepared, or at least have an understanding of what to do when hardships come. Okay, next, description of HR 598 and the Earth Act to stop climate pollution by 2030. Okay, so the overview of HR 598. The bill's goal is to cut U.S. greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2030 and phase out fossil fuel subsidies. It also focuses on reducing climate pollution and investing in green infrastructure and renewable energy. Some key provisions of this bill: set enforceable targets for carbon reduction, aiming for net zero emissions by 2030. Then transition the energy grid to 100% renewable energy by 2030, as well as providing clean energy jobs and economic opportunities to communities historically reliant on fossil fuels. Then ensuring support for climate adaptation in marginalized communities that are most affected by climate change. So some information about HR 598. So the bill number, HR 598, and the name, the Earth Act to Stop Climate Pollution by 2030. The Congress session, it is the 117th Congress, first session, 2021 to 2022. The sponsoring legislator, Representative Jared Huffman, is the primary sponsor of this bill, and the bill has been co-sponsored by Democratic representatives, including Representative Ilhan Omar and Representative Pramila Jayapal, both of whom have been vocal about supporting ambitious climate change legislation. The status of the bill. So as of now, HR 598 has been introduced and referred to the House Committee on Energy Commerce. It is still in the early stages and has not been passed into law yet, so it's still in the waiting stage. And the U.S. Code or Public Law Number. So HR 598 is not yet a law, so there is no public law number associated with it yet, but if it is passed, it will be incorporated into federal law, and its provisions will be codified into the U.S. Code under climate change legislation and related environmental regulations. So the federal department or agency responsible is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. They would be responsible for implementing many of the provisions in this bill. And the bill focuses on reducing pollution and greenhouse gas emissions areas under the EPA's purview. So the problem or situation the law is designed to address. So the primary problem that HR 598 addresses is the ongoing and accelerating climate crisis caused by human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels. The law aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the GHGs, that are responsible for global warming and climate change. The bill is designed to address the U.S.'s contribution to global carbon emissions, which is significant and continues to rise. Environmental justice issues, ensuring that marginalized communities who are most impacted by pollution and climate change receive the support they need. And then the need for a sustainable transition to renewable energy sources and the phasing out of fossil fuels to slow the progression of climate change. Okay, so how it addresses the problem. So first, achieving net zero emissions by 2030. This is a pretty ambitious goal, which requires a nationwide transition to cleaner renewable energy sources like wind and solar. And then ending fossil fuel subsidies. So the bill seeks to end subsidies for fossil fuel industries, encouraging the shift toward renewable energy. And then the bill proposes large-scale investments to in clean energy infrastructure and the creation of clean energy jobs with a focus on ensuring that workers in fossil fuel department or dependent industries can transition to new jobs. Environmental justice. So HR 598 emphasizes climate justice, directing resources to communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change and environmental pollution, such as low income and minority communities. So some of the outcomes so far: legislative status. So HR 598 has been introduced to the House but has not been passed. As of now, it has only been referred to the committee, meaning it is in the early stages of the legislative process. In the public and political support, while the bill has gained significant support from progressive lawmakers and environmental groups, it faces opposition from from some members in Congress and industry stakeholders who argue the bill's ambitious goals could harm economic growth or lead to higher energy prices. Then the advocacy for action. So environmental advocacy groups like Sierra Club and 350.org have supported the bill, emphasizing the urgency for climate action. On the other hand, fossil fuel industry representatives argue that rapid transition may have adverse economic consequences. It has on families. The Earth Act would have a profound impact on families, especially those in vulnerable communities. This can be seen through health benefits. Reducing air pollution would improve public health, particularly for those suffering from respiratory issues like asthma. Economic opportunities. The green energy transition would create jobs in renewable energy sectors, providing new employment opportunities for these families. Climate resilience. Families, particularly those in low income or marginalized areas, will benefit the most from climate adaptation efforts, such as improved infrastructure and flood control, protecting homes and livelihoods from climate impacts. Then also, families also play a critical role in supporting policies like HR 598 by advocating for climate action, reducing their own carbon footprints, and supporting the clean energy transition. Families can contribute to both the success of the bill and the broader efforts to mitigate climate change. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about my reflection on what I learned throughout this assignment. I definitely gained a deeper understanding of planetary sustainability and focusing on the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and the economic systems. I learned that climate change impacts not only ecosystems but also vulnerable communities, which highlights the importance of climate justice. And then I learned about the Earth Act HR 598, which I had no idea existed, which was introduced by Representative Jared Huffman and aims to achieve net zero emissions by 2030 and emphasizes renewable energy, green infrastructure, and addressing environmental justice. I also realized that sustainability requires systemic changes such as policy reforms rather than just individual actions. And then additionally, I learned that family and community resilience are crucial in adapting to climate change, with policies like the Earth Act supporting long-term environmental and social benefits. Okay, so these are some of my references. This is the first page. Second page, and then the last page. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation.